Hello.
Hey everyone.
How's it going?
It's so funny whenever I watch these videos. We always do the same exact thing at the beginning of everyone. It's so funny. So happy birthday to Corey. He is 47 years old today.
47 years young.
Yep. And happy anniversary to us because we are 2 years old. We've been doing this for 2 years now.
That's awesome.
Been consistent. I know it's really quite amazing because I don't think I've been consistent with really anything in my life. And this has actually helped me to become consistent with things in my life. So I'm just so grateful for that. Happy New Year. It's been about a month since we've done this, and so a lot has happened.
Fast.
I know. So it's been good. So something that's been on my mind a little bit over the past week, I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about kind of like habits, things that we do in our lives that, like habits and strongholds. He was talking about how a lot of times it's like we can compare our mind to a garden, and a lot of times our mind will get just full of weeds, and and we can go in and we can pull the weeds out and stuff, and we can change little habits, and sometimes it's not as difficult as other times. But then we have like those strongholds that are like trees that are really deeply rooted, that are a lot harder to remove from our lives than just those little weeds. And he was talking a lot about Eastern medicine and philosophy and Western medicine and philosophy, and the way that it's so different. How Western philosophy will be like, well, let's just bring in some fertilizer and put it on all the good stuff instead of removing the weeds. They want to just look at just the one little part, one little thing, and where the Eastern is like, well, let's look at the whole the ground, the soil, like what's going on, and maybe this isn't planted in the right place, maybe we need to move the garden, and they just look at a bigger picture than just like so anyhow, I don't know if any of that made any sense, but just the thought about the stronghold of that tree, how a lot of times we can have something that's so big in our lives, it's really challenging to remove, and it can keep us kind of stuck. It can keep us, and I think, with us, with this, what we started here, talking about recovery and addictions, is like, I think those of you who, well, we all struggle with some kind of things. They are strongholds in our lives, and how do we remove them? We've talked many times about addiction, and if there's something in our lives that that keeps us from God, and keeps us from, like, if the first thing in the morning when we wake up, we're thinking about how can I get whatever I'm addicted to. If our mind doesn't go directly to gratitude and God and just being grateful for a new day, but it goes to, oh, I need to check my phone.
Where's that coffee and sugar?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or I gotta take my pills, or I gotta, like, whatever our mind goes directly to, that's a stronghold in our lives that's keeping us from being able to be connected to God, like the way that we need to be. And so it's like, so what do we do? How do we get rid of these strongholds that are in our lives? Because I recognized for myself this past week that I've been in my mind a lot with this codependency again. I mean, it's such a hard thing sometimes whenever we live our life in codependent thinking, because we're constantly thinking about other people. Our minds are wrapped around people and their problems and how can we help them and stuff, and
avoid ourselves.
Yeah, and it's a stronghold in my life, other people. And so I've been having to practice really just stopping. Like, really the biggest thing is being aware of it and stopping myself from thinking and bringing myself back to God, and like just that awareness of it. I don't know, what's your thoughts?
I mean, we were just talking about it. habits. I mean, right before we started this, we were talking about my habit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had a habit. I had broken free of tobacco like years ago, but I replaced it with this new highly addictive nicotine replacement. Not the vape thing, those little Zen pouches that people use. And I was at peace with it. I was like, you know, I'm doing better. I'm progressing. And I was good. I was good with God. God was good with me. I felt peace about it. I didn't have any hang-ups, but it was a habit that I found comfort in. I found comfort in that habit. And it's funny, like over the last month or however long, 3 weeks or whatever, when you get rid of those habits, when you get rid of those vices, whatever you want to call them, life just kind of gets boring. It's like I do these things to fill this void of boredom. I need to do these certain habits to fill in these moments where these moments could be moments of solitude and peace and quiet and meditation. But instead, I need to constantly stay busy. So I have these habits that I do multiple times throughout the day. And now I find myself driving around and it's like, I'm kind of bored. Because normally I'm putting something in my mouth or I'm doing something to fill that quiet time. I'm keeping my mind stimulated. And, you know, I was talking with somebody just the other day, and he was sitting there smoking his vape pen, and he had his coffee or an energy drink. He had some caffeinated drink. He's like, dude, I just deal with anxiety. I always feel so anxious. And I'm like, dude, you're sitting there, you have two stimulants right in front of me, and you're telling me that you have a problem feeling stimulated. You know, you don't suffer with anxiety, you suffer with habits that cause anxiety. And then you've got the person, and I shared it with him, I was like, then you've got the person that's taken, I've suffered with depression, but I've also had an addiction to benzos.
Right. Or
drinking alcohol, and it's like, I don't know why I'm so depressed. Well, you are taking depressants. Let's think about it.
I've been there.
So, I mean, our habits create our moods. Our moods that...
Absolutely.
You know, our moods create our thinking and the way we perceive things, which create our personality, which create our reality, which create our beliefs. I mean, it comes all the way down to simple habits, creating who we are. I don't know if any of that makes sense.
Absolutely.
But our little habits, I've always heard it's the small things that are really the big things. If we can work on the small things in our lives, then a lot of the big things just disappear. My anxiety, my depression, if I stop doing depressants, if I stop doing stimulants, it's amazing that my anxiety goes away or my depression goes away. It's a miracle. You know?
Yeah. No, I will say with anxiety and depression, there are many times that there are more deeper root things can, create. But those are definitely things that add to it, that exacerbate it, definitely makes it bigger, makes it an issue.
I'm not trying to minimize the fact that people have mental issues.
Because people cannot do those things and still be depressed. Like I
have panic attacks.
Yeah, I cannot be on any drugs or any chemicals and still have depression because I've got some major deep issues within myself that, I
don't want to sound like I speak in absolutes.
Yeah. Oh, and see, and I hear in absolutes. So that could have just been me.
No, it was. And it sounds that way. It sounds like I'm saying, oh, this is the reason. Well, there are no absolutes. There are so many different things that can cause things.
Right. Yes, latched onto, you said something about being bored and like filling our time with these things just because we're so bored, and I recognize that a lot. Like especially nowadays, we have so many tools, we have so many things out there that with social media, with our phones, with TV, with just, we have access to so much input. So it's almost like we don't ever have to be bored because there's just so much. And so whenever we stop anything, it creates within us this feeling of being bored. And I'm like, I think it's okay.
Especially kids.
It's okay to be bored. I'm like, because I get that way sometimes. I'm like, I'm so bored. I need something to do.
Meditate.
And that's what that's what I go to. I'm like, okay, I just need to sit with myself and be okay with being bored. Because a lot of times I notice that it's like the boredom, it comes from, we want to constantly be stimulated. We want to constantly be involved in something, because a lot of times it can be uncomfortable just sitting in our thoughts, and witnessing what we're thinking. But meditation, I mean, I've been meditating more over the past few months because I've cut back on my social media stuff. I've just distanced myself from it a little bit, and I have so much peace in my life in such a different way. Like the stronghold I was talking about, like being caught up in codependent thinking, that's what it really hit me this past week, because my husband had a day where he was feeling really emotional about some things, and we started to have a conversation, and he was very highly emotional, and he was just feeling really deeply about some things. And as he was sharing these things with me, instead of just being a space for him to just share, I got triggered by something. And so, when we get those triggers, we just have to say something. It's like we just have to prove our point. We have to make the other person
Your ego
understand something, and it's just so ridiculous whenever we get caught into another person's emotional state that they're in, instead of just holding space and being love for him. It's like I got sucked into it, and so then I got drawn into his fears and his worries and his anxieties and just all of this emotional tornado feeling, and it just left me feeling so overwhelmed and drained. And I was like, holy crap, because for every day I sit in such peace with Christ, and I feel like I'm in that presence of stillness and calm and peace and love and joy. And so it's like whenever I step out of that and stepping into that, I was like, oh, holy crap, what just happened? So I had to look at myself and be like, what did I just do? And I was able to recognize that I allowed myself to get pulled into an emotional thing I just didn't need to, at all. And so I had to recognize my weakness. I had to recognize how I got caught in a behavior, really, a stronghold that has been in my life, that is like this dance of codependency. He did this, I do this, and I did it. But afterwards I was like, man, I did that again. After all this time of learning and all this stuff that I know, and I still got sucked into it. So I was able to recognize it, and I was able to go back to him and apologize for that. And, and just be like, I just recognized that he just needed me to hear him and to listen to him and to have compassion and understand and just know where he is. And I didn't have to take it personal. I didn't have to hear anything like he's, how we get in conversations with people. And so I was able to just recognize and apologize for that. And the great thing about that is that it helps us to become closer with people when we can recognize where we have done something that, I'm not going to say is wrong, but we just step back into a behavior that's not healthy. It's just not healthy for our relationships. And whenever we can recognize that, It helps us to strengthen our relationships. And whenever we sit in that peace and that stillness and that quietness, that's why meditation is so amazing, because it can help us to recognize these behaviors so quickly. And it's just helping me to see that stronghold that has been so strong in my life, and it is getting weaker. It is getting weaker and weaker as I just practice these things. It really is awesome.
Yeah, that is. It's good to be able to recognize it and to apologize.
Yeah.
You know, instead of sitting around and letting that stew for a few days and him getting mad and you getting more frustrated.
Right. Yeah.
Communication, so easy to get offended. And, you know, one of the 4 agreements, never take anything personal.
Mm-hmm.
Never take anything personally. And it's so important not to, I mean, there is a way to say something that is a lot less offensive, like, you make me feel.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Or
yeah.
whenever
we don't ever want to say you.
Yeah, you make me feel this. It's like, well, no, I can't make you feel anything.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever you do this, I feel this way. That's so much less offensive, you know? Just speaking about communication.
Well, I think anytime you say you, I think it's always needs to be, I feel this way whenever this happens, and not even use you, because anytime I hear you, it's almost like you just put up this defense and you want to defend yourself, and I'm not like that, you know. And so if we could just
I feel this way when people do this, or when this happens around me.
Yeah,
it's just such a better way to communicate, you know. I've been guilty of it. I feel this way whenever you do this. You make me feel this way. And it's like, no, nobody makes me feel any way. I feel certain ways due to things that have happened in my life, and my body reacts. I react in a certain way, and I can choose to change and be aware of those things and be a safe space for people I love, where they know they can come to me and talk about things, and I'm not going to react and say, well, you make me feel this way, or you did this. I don't even know what your conversation was, but, you know, that is just a safe place where somebody can come and share anything, and I'm not going to get offended.
Right.
I'm not going to get triggered. I'm not going to feel like a 12-year-old that had something happen to me, and you're saying something that's making me feel like that 12-year-old again. Because I get defensive. I want to defend my ego, because my ego is very strong. I can allow my ego to be very strong. And it's just communication is just so, we talked about this recently, I think, but communication is it's so much more than the words that are said. Conversation, yeah, we did. You could have your spouse or your friend or anybody saying something, and you're hearing something, and you're having 2 completely different conversations. You're hearing one thing, they're saying another thing, and then afterwards you say, yeah, but you said this, and they're like, I never said that. And you're like, yeah, you did. And they're saying, no, you said this, and you're like, I never said that. I had this conversation with somebody that I love recently that said that her boyfriend had said that, you know, when they go to college, they're gonna kind of go their separate ways. And she mentioned to him, you know, you remember when you said this? And he was like, I never said that. And I was like, okay, he might not have said that vocally, but it is when 2 people love each other, when 2 people are close, the truth is revealed, whether it is vocalized or not. You're going to hear or feel the truth when 2 people are really close. And they both know they're going on other sides of the country. They both know that life is changing, and they're both aware, but neither one of them want to. But once it's vocalized and actually spoken, it becomes real. And when she said it, he was like, I never said that. And then all of a sudden it was real.
Mm-hmm.
But it was already real because they both already knew it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not throwing anybody out there. I'm not saying any names, but it's, you know, in my relationship, in my marriage, my spouse never had to ask a question. It was just a dance. It was a game.
Right.
Are you using? Are you loaded? No.
Right.
You know, it's 4 a.m. and I'm falling over the dishes, cleaning dishes. And it's like, have you used? And it's like, no, I haven't used. It's just,
Right.
why even ask? You already know the truth. And that might be totally off from what you were talking about, but
yeah.
Communication, it can be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
It can be so healthy, and it doesn't have to trigger our ego and make us feel defensive.
Mm-hmm.
We can be that safe space, like you mentioned, that we can be that place for somebody where they can come to you and talk about anything,
Mm-hmm.
tell you anything, and you're not going to get offended and say,
Mm-hmm.
you know, feel like, oh, you're telling me that I didn't know. I'm not telling you anything. I'm just telling you how I feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's hard. I mean, it's hard to change that behavior because especially whenever it's a
lifelong,
dance that we've
generational.
been in for years and years and years, and this is just how we communicate with one another. It's like, but I'm tired of that. I'm like, that is not how I want it to be anymore. And I just recognize my own part, and I think that's that is the thing, is to recognize our own part, because we can't change other people. You know, all we could do is change ourselves and how we show up in communicating with people. Yeah. So it's good. It's good to recognize. I mean, I just know that codependency is it's an addictive way of thinking. It's been a huge stronghold in my life. And, you know, I mean, how do we get rid of these strongholds? You know, they were talking about in this podcast a lot about like deliverance. I mean, a lot of times it's just deep ones. You got to be delivered from it, you know. I mean,
the only way to get rid of those strongholds is just to continue to work on ourselves. You know, to recognize, to write it on paper, to know. See, I was kind of aware of a lot of my character defects. You know, I was kind of aware, like, I've got these things. I get really loud, I get defensive, I got a big ego, I got a lot of things. But those were like surface level awareness.
mm-hmm.
When you write it down and you say, I behave this way, these are my character defects, and you actually write it down or type it down, or you actually put it down where you can read it and tell yourself, this is something I've struggled with, then you can work on it. If I just go around thinking, oh, you know, I got an issue with so-and-so, or I've got a hard time dealing with this and that, well, those are just fleeting thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
But if I have something concrete on paper that I can read and do, you know, regularly look at it and work on it, well, then that's not just a thought of, I need to improve in this part of my life. It's actually, I'm putting it down and I'm saying, I am going to improve on this part of my life. And these strongholds, I'm going to work on those. I had somebody tell me recently, this was awesome. There's a scripture in LDS doctrine that says, I give unto men weakness, that they may be humble. For if they will humble themselves, I will make their weaknesses become strengths. And a certain person was listening to a talk in a conference, and this woman was talking about how a lot of times we're in prayer, we are asking for forgiveness for certain weaknesses that we have. But why would we ask our Heavenly Father for forgiveness for something He gave us? I mean, He literally gave it to us. He gave us certain weaknesses so that we would be humble and that we would turn to him. So if we find ourselves falling into certain strongholds in our lives or weaknesses in our lives, these are things God gave us so that we would turn to him. And we shouldn't, I choose to no longer feel like this guilty sinner that needs to ask for forgiveness when I fall into these weaknesses that I was born with. I just have to recognize them and be humble and ask for support.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's not expecting me to say, oh, I'm so sorry for doing it again.
Mm-hmm.
He gave it to me
Right.
so that I would turn to him. So I can say, thank you for my weakness so that I can recognize that I need to turn to you for strength. So I recognize that I need to humble myself and turn to you, turn to thee, and seek help. So I'm grateful for my weaknesses. And some of them we might live with for our whole lives.
Yeah, that is true. Too, something else, and we've talked about it before too, is instead of looking and fighting and focusing on those weaknesses and on the stronghold, it's shifting to the strength. It's how can I become stronger? What can I do to fill myself with good things that will eventually, just like you said, it causes the challenges to just disappear. If we're filling our life with goodness and we're making those changes, it's just a shift. It really is. So much is really just a shift in our consciousness, a shift in what we are focusing on.
Yeah, I've started chewing a lot of gum.
Right. Yeah.
You gotta
fill it with something.
If we remove something from our lives, we have to fill that hole. Something as simple as a nicotine pouch.
Mm-hmm.
Remove it from my life. I was bored for a while, and then I was in the store, and I was like, I need something new. I need a pack of gum because I need something in my mouth. It's just I like to masticate. I like to have something in my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that.
Just make sure it's not sugar that's rotting your teeth.
Yeah, I've been off sugar for a good while. I did eat everybody wanted to give me sugar over the holidays.
That is so crazy because over the holidays, it's the time whenever we eat sugar and then our immune system weakens and we get the flu.
And I give it I gave it all to my kids. It's
right,
like,
because they need it.
Why didn't I just put it in the garbage? Because
we have a hard time throwing stuff away. We feel like we have to.
But my kids need the same childhood experience I had, eating tons of sugar.
Yeah, right.
It's like, when are we going to change things?
I know. Because they are seriously strongholds in our life. Sugar is a stronghold. Food is such a huge thing in people's lives. Like the other day, it's so crazy because I've had the flu for like a week, and a few days ago I felt like I need to fast because we have learned
fast that flu away.
We have learned this, and I had the thought, and then that night I ate chicken. So I put meat in my body that my body was going to now have to, everything had to go to processing that food.
Instead of fighting the infection, you're digesting the chicken.
And I woke up the next day feeling worse. And so I was like, I gotta fast. But then again, that day I ate something else that I did not need to put into my body. And I was like, why? Why is it that I keep being told that I need to fast, yet I continue to put food in my body? And it's because it is a stronghold. It is an addictive thing in us that we feel like we have to eat, or I'm going to starve to death, or, something. But so the next day I did. I woke up and I fasted. I decided, I was like, I need to fast this out of me. And I'm so glad that I did, because I feel like it did help in some ways. But it's just crazy how our minds and our thoughts, like we feel like we can't do things because they are. It's just
we know something, but it's applying it.
Yeah, it's actually doing it.
People might think it's crazy, but the best way to get rid of the flu It's to shut down your digestive system and allow your body to eat it out of you.
Yeah.
You know, it's in there. It's in your body. And, you know, they're going to give you medicine to fight it. You're really not. I mean,
no, put more chemicals in you to have to.
Best way to overcome anything is fasting. And I've actually been thinking a lot about fasting lately.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm back up to set 170. I need to get back down to 145.
Yeah.
I look at some of these videos. I was so skinny.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like eyes sinking in, skinny, like under 150 pounds. But
and fasting is one of those things that can help us to overcome these strongholds in our lives. I mean, I've definitely learned that, because when we fast, we're just more in tune with the spirit, because we're letting go of food. It opens up our day to, like, we have time. We have some boredom time in there, because we're used to just eating and cooking, and just the whole process of food, washing your dishes, putting, just all of it. It takes so much time. And so whenever you take that out of the equation, and now you're just with yourself, and two, whenever you are purposefully fasting and you're mindful about it, then you are wanting to have the spirit, you're asking for it, and God really does. He wants to give us anything that's going to help us in our lives. And so if we are asking and seeking and searching and surrendering ourselves to the Spirit, then it really is helpful. I know that has helped me.
It's funny, the last few weeks, if not month, if I miss a meal, my stomach hurts, I'm hungry.
Oh, I know. Yeah, that's why I had a hard time fasting, because I get so hungry and I'm like, I need something to eat. But
months ago, I could go days. I'm just like, oh, I better eat something.
Right, because my body needs some energy.
Nourishment is good.
Yeah, I mean, we do need food to live.
Yeah. Well, supposedly.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's what science says. But I'm open-minded.
True.
We do need energy to live. Where we get that energy is from food. Are there other ways to get that energy? I don't know of one, but it might be out there. Just a few crazy thoughts from Corey and Kelly.
Yep. So it's the kind of strongholds have been on my mind, and just how to continue to progress and to move forward, and to let these things go into the past, to let them just continue to fall off of us, so that we could just be more of what God wants us to be, and to have Him more fully in our lives, to have Him comfort us and soothe us, and to fill in that boredom. And because I tell you what, whenever I sit in meditation with the Spirit, I'm not bored at all.
No.
It's truly, I could sit in meditation just for the rest of my life, because I love it.
Yeah.
But He doesn't want us to sit there all the time. He wants us to get up and do and share and bring what He shows us into this world.
Yeah. We don't have to be stuck in those strongholds. We don't have to be stuck in those patterns. We don't have to be stuck in those triggers. Mm-mm. We can progress and overcome them. It's I haven't, but I know I can. And
work in progress.
I'm working on it. Yeah. So, not perfect. Never will be. And I won't be
in this life
right now.
Right today.
But
I'm not.
Maybe when. Yeah. I'm not right now, but I don't know about when now.
Right. The
shows
now.
Up
Yeah.
in a little bit. But yeah, life is good. Happy New Year, everybody.
Yep, it's a new year.
Let's
see
it
what
is
this
beautiful.
One brings. I'm excited.
2025. It's good chatting. Y'all have a great day.